Okay, your current project is Aliens versus Predator.
No, it's Alien Predator Deadliest of the Species. It's not Alien versus Predator.
Okay. Is there no conflict between them this time?
No, it's a team-up. A team-up.
Oh, great. Okay.
Basically, it's the story of a young widowed mother whose children have been kidnapped by villains who are in the employ of an evil corporation that plans to use them for obscene medical experiments. And she goes to rescue them or avenge them, whichever comes first. And along the way gathers a couple of friends to help her out. Classic Western. You're talking The Searchers, you're talking Two Rode Together, any other situation would be John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and Richard Widmark. In this instance, it's the young widowed mother happens to be a predator. And the two friends she gathers along the way are an alien and a human. And we like to think of it in the route around the office, shorthand as Thelma and Louise with serious attitude and really big guns. So the idea is to do a story that shatters the traditional preconceptions about an alien or a predator story. I mean, basically, you buy the comic, you know pretty much what you're going to expect. The aliens and or predators will show up, there will be much mayhem, the hero will prove themselves, and at the end the alien and the predator will be destroyed. In this instance, by making the alien and the predator the heroic characters in the series, you add an element of suspense that isn't there in a normal book. You hopefully create an emotional investment between the reader and the characters and the book that is not present for your traditional, as I said, alien or predator story. You're actually rooting for the characters that normally you'd be waiting to see get slaughtered. So if we do this right, who knows?
Did your involvement in this come from being an Aliens or Predator fan, or?
It came from Mike Richardson calling up and asking if I wanted to do a story, and my saying, if I have a story, he said, sorry. IAN or YN?
Save that other one and give it to somebody named Mike or somebody else.
Yeah, Mike Richardson. I'm sure he'll love it. Basically, it comes, I said if I had a story to tell that would be different from any other alien or predator, because I really had no interest in doing just a stock run them around the steeplechase and go to the predictable ending.
Right.
Then I would give it a shot. So I sat down, I thought about it, came up with a premise, pitched it to Mike. Mike loved it. The rest, as they say, is history.
These ones are the ones you want, not this one? Okay.
The thing you're, of course, probably best known for at this point is still the X-Men. Have you severed all ties with that, or is it?
I have no connection with the X-Men department. I have no projects with them. I have no proposals with them. I'm not doing anything with them. You're quite welcome. I have no likelihood of doing anything with them. So I guess you could say I've severed.
It's kind of come to an end, huh?
Well, they haven't made me an offer and I haven't made them an offer, so I guess we're even.
Okay.
In the X-Men, you had the Brood, which are kind of aliens-like. Does that have any effect on your story?
Please have your attention. For the signing, I didn't do that. I did not do that. For the signings, we are now doing 2,300 and down. The last 4 digits on the orange wristbands. 2,300 and down. Thank you very much and have fun.
You were saying about the Brood?
Yeah, I mean, there were some similarities, obviously. Were those the artist that he came up with that concept of the look of the characters and the name concept?
Actually, if you look at Dave's brood, they look nothing like aliens.
Well, that's the teeth. That's in the head. I mean,
Teeth are,
that's the first.
no, actually, he based them on wasps. Their physiological structure is based on a wasp. And if you look at it, the shape of the head is nothing like Geiger's. Mind you, the shape of the queen, the brood queen, is very much like Dave's alien queen. So for all we know, there is some cross-fertilization, but not from film to comics, you know, possibly from comics to film. Who knows? I mean, it's the concept of a predatory alien species is not exactly revolutionary to science fiction or comics. You know, I think it was just, I wanted villains. I mean, when Dave and I created them, the idea was to come up with a set of villains that were so hideous and so irredeemably wicked that we could just stomp them into jelly. Wouldn't have to, you know, I wouldn't have to go through what I went through with Wolverine, where in one of the John Byrne issues he slashes up a bunch of guards who were trying to kill him, and then a year and a half later Jim Shooter suggested that we established that the guards were still alive, or that Professor Xavier was like sending disability checks to their survivors. You know, it's like we wanted somebody for Wolverine to like kill really enthusiastically, and the brood were it.
You've done, is it 2 novels so far in your science fiction series?
Yeah. First Flight is the first one, which was published in 1987 and is now in its 7th printing.
Wow.
And which I'm adapting for DC Comics as a 4-part prestige series. There's the sequel, Grounded, which came out 2 years ago, and the 3rd in the series, Sundowner, will be out next year from Ace Books. I've also got a fantasy novel called Dragon Moon, which I've written with my wife, Beth Fleischer, and which is a thematic sequel to a series that John Bolton and I did about 8 years ago called The Black Dragon, which will be published in hardcover from Bantam Books in the fall of '94, with 10 full-color paintings and 30 line art illustrations by John Bolton. And then I have a 3-book hardcover fantasy series also with Bantam. So I'm working in comics, I'm working in novels, I'm playing the field. Going to be very busy for the next few years.
Do you have a preference, which is more fun or more gratifying?
It depends on the circumstance.
Do you have a favorite work so far?
The advantage of a novel over a comic is that you don't have to work with an artist. The disadvantage is you don't have to work with an artist. They exercise different parts of the brain.
You know the art team is going to be on the Grounded or First Flight?
At the moment, we're talking with a French artist, Christian Alamy, who did the last issue of Lobo's Back for DC and also the Legion Bloodlines annual this year. So hopefully it'll get done, but whenever.
Do you have a work that you're most proud of at this stage?
Probably to an extent the novels.
Novels?
The X-Men graphic novel, God Loves, Man Kills.
It's my favorite X-Men story.
You know, I mean, it's a huge body of work. Watch it. You know, I mean, you're talking about 300 or 400 individual pieces of work scattered over a 20-year period.
Right.
Is there an extra level of freedom you had on God Loves, Man Kills? Everybody I've talked to, that's mostly their favorite X-Men story that they've ever read.
Well, you have to consider the context of the time. I was working with the best editor, the person I consider to be the best editor in comics, Louise Simonson, certainly the best editor I've ever worked with. It was a time in Marvel's history when they were considerably more relaxed both about the X-Men as a canon and how Weezy and I handled it. They were much more inclined to trust our judgment. There was a lot less corporate levels of corporate management interference, call it what you will. Basically, the only requirement was that we do a really good story, which we did. And in less than 5 months, 4 months of work, we just ran that puppy out. So, all in all, it was the ideal creative staff in the right place at the right time to do their best work, which I think both Brent and Steve Oliff and Tom Orzechowski and Louise and I did. I don't know, even given the same creative team, if that synergy would be possible today. It's just the X-Men has become too much the mega franchise to play with in that way.
Do you have a feeling about the animated series? Any feelings?
I haven't seen the animated series, so I have no idea.
Remember in interviews from way back, you were always saying you didn't want to see the X-Men become flatten the market.
Well,
your fears have become realized.
I didn't. My feeling was, my rationale was always that it would be better to have less product of the highest possible quality. The problem is when you increase the number of titles and the frequency, Gresham's law comes into effect, and bad work tends to chase out good. The preponderance of material that's available.
You want together?
Yeah, I want a picture of him. I don't care.
Blands out the whole scheme of it lowers the average. It's like instead of a few books that are superlative, you have a bunch of books that are good. And then maybe you have instead of a bunch of books that are good, you have a whole bunch of books that are mediocre, with occasional bright spots. And I mean, I've often said that if I were editor-in-chief, the way I would handle Wolverine is to do him as a 4-issue or 6-issue limited series a year, whereby the creators would be able to do work of would be able to do quality work. Actually, I prefer to sign it here if that's okay.
Okay, sure. No problem. You wrote it.
Thank you. The creators could do superior work. The readers would always be left hungry for a little more, or a lot more. And the character would always retain to himself an air of mystery. There would be something, there would always be questions left unanswered. There would always be turns in the road. And by doing self-contained stories, you could actually do stories. It wouldn't be part of this never-ending, incredibly convoluted, complicated, over-involved interstitial Gordian's knot web, much like the sentence that the X-Men has become.
You ever thought of becoming an editor? I mean, you'd have more control over a wide range of subject matter.
Why?
I mean, you could guide a whole... I don't know, that's my question. Thank you.
I'm a writer. I mean, I have been an editor. I could be an editor. But it's a totally different head, and it would be a waste of resources. Because the essential point that you miss in this is that, yes, if I owned the X-Men, or if I had equity in the X-Men. If it were both emotionally and financially rewarding for me to maintain the integrity of the series, yes, it would be worth it for me to give up writing to an extent and work as an editor. But all I'm really doing, if I were, say, to go to work for Marvel as X-Men editor, would be facilitating the generation of corporate profit. They wouldn't be my characters. I wouldn't be doing what I want. I would be doing what I want to the extent that the corporation would let me do it. If Tom DeFalco or Michael Hobson or Terry Stewart came down one day and said, we must have a crossover with these books. We must have this event happen to this character.
Oh yeah, keep him away from sugar and caffeine for the rest of the day.
My position, I would either have to persuade them to change their mind, or go along with it, or find another job. There's no way I could say, no, you can't.
It doesn't have to just be the X-Men, I mean, just editing in general. The same feeling?
Well, the point is that the only work I would care to edit would be my own work. But, yeah, you already have my autograph. But I can't edit my own work until I write it first. And I'm not my own best editor. So,
This is great.
editing is okay, but writing is fun.
Are you working on something for Defiant right now? Did I read that right?
Jim Shooter and I have been talking about a series concept called Prudence and Caution. Caution is this big, powerful guy who's told he's invulnerable but doesn't believe it, or rather, he doesn't want to find out the hard way that he's been lied to. Quite understandable. Hence, caution. And Prudence is this alien spunkette who thinks Earth is the ideal, perfect planet for her to conquer. And Caution's role in life is to sort of persuade her that this is not a socially acceptable way of relating to her adopted homeworld. It's sort of like, what if Superman came to Earth with a major attitude?
Any timetable on that?
Well, I got about 3 other projects that have to be resolved before I get to it, so I would say probably next year sometime. But to be honest, Jim and I haven't spoken at it more than anything more than the most general terms, so. My pleasure. My X-Men have nothing to do with Marvel, except that they both, I mean, you know, my relations with Marvel have nothing to do with the X-Men that I wrote. My pleasure.
Are you surprised at what the X-Men have turned into as far as this huge... They were, like, when you took them over, they were...
Nothing.
Reprint comics at best.
It was a second-tier mid-list book, bi-monthly. About as close to cancellation as any title could get. I'm very proud.
When you drew?
You know, I think for various reasons it turned out to be the book of its time, and I'm very proud to have been a part of that, a major part of that. But the problem is that since X-Men are owned by a corporation, they are subject to the needs and desires and demands of the corporation, whose agenda is wholly different from the needs and demands and expectations and desires of the creators. Say, you know, it applies to X-Men, it applies to Superman, it applies to Batman. For, you know, I mean, Denny O'Neil can present any any story concept he likes, but it has to be cleared by DC management, by Warner Brothers management. Ultimately, he is limited in what control he has over the Batman canon. Ultimately, none of the people who work on the books in the traditional work-for-hire mode at Marvel or DC or anywhere. Your light is blinking.
Yeah, we're almost at the end of the tape.
Have any creative control over the work that they do, either while they're doing it or after they've gone. Which is why you're seeing more and more emphasis, I think, on companies like Image, Dark Horse, self-publishers like Dave Sim and Richard and Wendy Pini and Joe Duffy. The ultimate, I think, goal, the ultimate ambition of many of us who are in the industry now is to come to a point in our careers where we define the terms under which we work, either for a major company or for ourselves in the marketplace, where we own the characters, where we control their fate, where we control what happens to them creatively and commercially, where we benefit as much from the marketing of the work as we have put into the creation of the work. I think that's to the better. I think it's long overdue.
All right.